Welcome to the open mic, where bold stories spark big conversations. And quite frankly, the news cycle this week has just been relentless.
It's been nonstop.
Absolutely. I mean, just when you think a story is finally, put to bed.
When the books are closed, the settlements are paid.
Exactly. Something new just breaks the surface. And this time, it's not a ripple. I think we can agree this is a tidal wave.
It certainly feels different this time, doesn't it? We've been covering the Epstein saga for years.
Decades, really.
It feels like it. But what happened this week with the release of these unredacted files from the U.S. Department of Justice, it's fundamentally shifted the ground beneath our feet.
We're talking about 3 million documents. Just let that number sink in. 3 million.
It's an overwhelming amount of data.
It is. So today, we are focusing on one specific thing. This report, it takes those millions of documents and it just zooms in on one very specific, very royal problem. Prince Andrew. So our mission today is to, cut through all that noise.
Precisely. Because when 3 million documents drop, the risk is information overload.
You get numb to it?
You get numb to the headlines. Our job is to parse through the dense legal and journalistic debris to find the signal. We need to understand the specific allegations of consensual sex that are now, for the first time, in black and white.
And the timeline. The timeline of the palace's denials versus what was happening in private.
And the very real threats of criminal prosecution that the Duke of York is now facing right now.
And let's be really clear about what's in here. This isn't just, rehashed gossip.
Not at all.
We have what everyone is calling a smoking gun email from a New York Times reporter. We have allegations that British taxpayer secrets were funneled directly to Giuffre Epstein.
This is unbelievable.
And we have to navigate all of this through the lens of, a tragedy given the news we now have regarding Virginia Giuffre.
That context is crucial. It hangs over everything. It's a heavy episode for sure, but an absolutely essential one if we want to understand how power protects itself.
So let's get into it. I want to start with the document that everyone is talking about, the so-called smoking gun.
The email chain.
The email chain. But before we actually read it, can you just set the scene for me? Who are the players here? What's the date?
Okay. So the date is January 16th, 2015. The players are Giuffre Epstein, the convicted sex offender, and a man named Landon Thomas Jr.
And who was he?
At the time, he was a financial reporter for the New York Times.
Okay, 2015. This context is so important. This is years before Epstein's death, years before the Ghislaine Maxwell trial.
Right. At this point, Epstein is actively trying to rehabilitate his image.
He's back on the scene.
He's out of jail from that initial, sweetheart deal conviction. He's back in the social mix, and he's talking to journalists. And this email chain is just fascinating because it gives us a window into how the media, or at least this one reporter, was advising him.
So, in this email, Landon Thomas Jr. is giving Epstein advice. Advice on how to handle the Prince Andrew scandal, which was just starting to bubble up again.
He was.
And the reporter writes this, and I want to read it slowly because every single word lands like a hammer. He says, in the end, he had consensual sex with VR, and VR worked for you. The rest is atmospherics.
The rest is atmospherics.
I stopped cold when I read that. Atmospherics. That is such a specific, such a clinical word.
It is a very deliberate choice of words. You have to remember, Thomas is a high-level reporter. He knows language. Atmospherics, in military or diplomatic context, it usually refers to the background noise.
Right, like the mood, the lighting.
Exactly. The environmental factors that surround a mission but aren't the mission itself. The non-essential stuff.
So by using that word, he's essentially saying the rape allegations, the trafficking, the abuse, that's just the weather. That's just background noise.
That is the clear implication. He is reducing the incredible gravity of the situation to a simple PR problem. He's telling Epstein, look, we both know the act happened, he had sex with her, but because she worked for you.
And that phrasing is so important.
She worked for you. Therefore, the outcry, the legal issues, the public shock, that's all just atmospherics. It's just weathered to be weathered.
It's incredibly dehumanizing. And VR, who the files now explicitly identify as Virginia Roberts, which was Virginia Giuffre's maiden name, she's reduced to a staff member.
She worked for you.
As if being trafficked is a job description.
It's the logic of the abuser, and it's being adopted by the observer, by the journalist. It suggests that inside that elite bubble, the transaction was completely normalized.
Like she works here, she provides a service, therefore it's consensual.
Yes. It completely ignores the power dynamic. Her age, she was 17, and the obvious coercion involved.
But this is where it gets so legally dangerous for both Andrew and Epstein. You have a journalist stating, as a fact, in the end, he had consensual sex with VR. Now, if I'm Giuffre Epstein,
right,
and I'm maintaining my innocence, and I'm maintaining that my friend the prince is innocent, wouldn't I reply to that email immediately? Wouldn't I say, whoa, hold on, Landon, that never happened. Andrew never touched her.
You absolutely would, 100%. If you are innocent, or even if you are just diligently protecting a lie, the first rule is deny everything on the record. Correct the narrative immediately.
But he didn't.
No, he didn't. And Epstein's response is what lawyers call an adoptive admission.
Okay, explain that for us. What's an adoptive admission?
It's when someone makes a statement to you, direct accusation, like you robbed that bank and you don't deny it, even though any reasonable person in that situation would. Your silence, or in this case your pivot, is treated as an agreement.
An agreement through silence.
Exactly. In this email chain, Epstein doesn't correct Thomas. He doesn't say that's false or that's outrageous. He just pivots the conversation.
To what?
He starts talking about currency markets.
You're kidding me. Currency markets.
He literally changes the subject to the euro or the dollar. It's jarring to read.
That is. It's chilling. It's like two mobsters discussing a hit and then immediately asking about the pasta.
It is exactly like that. It's a signal. It signals that the sex with VR was a baseline fact for them. It wasn't a topic up for debate.
It was just a reality they were navigating.
Precisely. The discussion wasn't, did it happen? The discussion was, okay, it happened. How do we manage the fallout?
And this is now being called the first written corroboration from inside the camp. Because until this point, we've had Virginia's word and we've had Andrew's denial.
Very loud denial.
Right. But this is a third party, a journalist stating it as fact to the facilitator, Epstein, who then accepts it as fact by not denying it.
Correct. It completely destroys the I don't recall defense.
It vaporizes it.
You can't credibly claim you don't remember meeting someone when your best friend and his media advisor are casually discussing the sex acts you performed with her as if it's an established historical event.
And we have to look at the timing of this because the calendar tells a very, very specific story about the palace's strategy.
The calendar is key.
This email is dated January 16th, 2015. So what was happening in the weeks just before that?
This is where what I call the two realities theory comes in. Because just 2 weeks prior, on January 3, 2015, the story had blown up in the press.
I remember this. Buckingham Palace went into full crisis mode. They did something they almost never do.
They issued an unprecedented statement.
The palace usually follows that never complain, never explain rule, but they broke it for this.
They smashed it. This statement, and I'm quoting here, emphatically denied that the Duke of York had any form of sexual contact or relationship with Virginia Roberts.
Emphatically denied.
Any form. The language is absolute.
So, okay, let's get this straight. On January 3rd, the official, public, royal truth sent out to the entire world is, it never happened.
Unequivocally.
13 days later, on January 16th, the private truth sitting in Giuffre Epstein's inbox is, he had consensual sex with VR.
The gap between those two statements is where the entire scandal lies.
It feels like it proves that the palace's denial was likely, manufactured in direct contradiction to what the key players knew to be true.
It strongly suggests that. And you have to remember Andrew's defense strategy for the next decade. He didn't just say, I didn't do it.
No, he went further.
He said, I have no memory of meeting this lady. He went on Newsnight and told the whole world he was at a Pizza Express in Woking.
The Woking alibi.
He built an entire reality tunnel based on the idea that they were complete strangers.
And yet in 2022, he paid her a reported $12 million to settle the sexual assault lawsuit.
Which is an awful lot of money for someone you claim to have never met.
Right.
But this email, it kind of explains why he settled, doesn't it? If this kind of evidence was lurking in the background, if his lawyers knew that journalists and Epstein were casually discussing the sex back in 2015, they knew they could never survive a trial.
Not a chance. The discovery process would have been a disaster for him.
An absolute catastrophe.
I want to stay on the journalist for a second, this Landon Thomas Jr. figure, because this whole thing makes me look at the media very differently. This isn't just a reporter getting a scoop.
Yeah.
He sounds like a conciliere.
The ethical breach here is, it's staggering. Look, journalists cultivate sources. We all know that. It's part of the job.
Of course.
But Thomas Jr. appears to be crossing the line from reporting into strategic advisory.
Yeah.
He is effectively acting as Epstein's PR consultant.
He literally writes, I think the big issue is separating yourself from Andrew. It's Andrew, not Clinton and the rest, that is keeping the story alive.
Just analyze that sentence for a moment.
It's pure strategy.
He is advising a known sex offender to throw a member of the royal family under the bus to save his own skin. He's saying, Andrew is the toxic one. Andrew is the anchor that's dragging you down.
It's so ironic, isn't it? Usually people think of Andrew as being dragged down by his association with Epstein.
That's the public narrative.
But here, this reporter, this insider, is saying Andrew is the liability because he's the one keeping the story in the headlines.
And Epstein is complaining about it. He replies to Thomas Jr., whining that his reputation has taken a hit.
Taken a hit. The narcissism is completely off the charts.
It is. He says he was trying to keep quiet to protect an unnamed girlfriend. He writes, he tried to keep her out of my mess. But he's clearly frustrated. He sees himself as the victim of Andrew's notoriety.
It's mind-bending. So what happened to this reporter, Landon Thomas Jr.? The Daily Mail report says he no longer works for the New York Times.
He does not. And the circumstances around his departure are murky but very suggestive. The files reveal a claim that in 2017, he asked Epstein to make a $30,000 charitable donation.
To what?
To a Harlem Cultural Center.
So wait. Money, or at least a financial favor, was requested from the subject of his reporting.
That's the allegation. And it creates a deeply problematic transactional dynamic. You give me access, I give you advice, maybe you give a donation to a cause I support.
It just completely erodes the objectivity of the reporting.
It destroys it. Mm-hmm. And the files also show that Thomas Jr. was warning Epstein about other journalists.
What do you mean?
He warned him when other investigative reporters, like a guy named John Connolly, were digging around.
So he was acting as a lookout. Watch out, Giuffre. The real reporters are coming.
It paints a very disturbing picture of how Epstein was protected. It wasn't just his lawyers and his fixers and his money. It was, at least in this case, sympathetic voices in the media who treated his crimes as atmospherics and helped him navigate the storm.
Now, I want to shift gears a little bit. We've been talking about the perpetrators and the enablers, but we need to talk about the victim.
We do.
Because in these new files, released here in February 2026, there is a piece of information regarding Virginia DeRoche that changes everything.
This is, I think, the hardest part of the report to digest. The source confirms that Virginia Giuffre took her own life last year.
Last year, 2025.
Yes.
I have to say, when I read that line, I just had to put the report down for a minute. We have followed her fight for so long. She was the one who refused to be silenced.
She was relentless.
She stood up to a prince. She stood up to the entire establishment. And now she's gone.
It is a devastating tragedy. And it just underscores the permanent toll of this kind of trauma. Mm-hmm. The legal victories, the settlements, they don't erase the past. Her death in 2025 adds this layer of profound sadness to these files.
But I want to ask you about the legal implication of this, because cynically, some people might hear that and think, well, the main accuser has passed away, so the case against Andrew is closed. Does her death actually help him?
Paradoxically, no. Legal experts quoted in the report argue it might actually make things worse for him, both in the court of public opinion and in terms of the historical record.
Why is that?
Because her testimony is already logged in.
Right. She gave extensive depositions over the years.
Exactly. In those December 2014 Florida court filings, she laid it all out. She described being trafficked to Andrew for sex by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell at least 3 times in 2001 when she was 17 years old. That testimony exists. It is sworn. It is incredibly detailed.
And now it's her final word.
It is. She can no longer be cross-examined by aggressive lawyers. She can't be intimidated. She can't be worn down. Her voice, as captured in these files, is now immutable.
And the public sympathy,
which was already largely with her, is now cemented. The narrative is no longer a battle between 2 living people with competing stories. It is now the sworn testimony of a woman who died carrying this incredible burden versus the man she accused of causing it.
It really puts that consensual sex email into a sickening perspective, doesn't it?
It's repulsive.
To hear them call it consensual when we now know the final outcome for her, it's beyond words.
It is. And it shows that Epstein was just fighting a war on reality itself. He had his own list of defenses, right? The files break down his 8 reasons why he was innocent.
Oh, the 8 reasons. This list is, well, let's go through it, because it really gives us a look into his completely delusional state of mind.
It really does. So first, he claimed he was never alone at the house.
Which is the classic, I'm a busy, important man with people around defense.
Right. He said staff and friends were always present. He also claimed, and get this, no girl ever complained, not once.
No girl ever complained. As if silence equals consent, especially when you are a terrifyingly powerful man and they are vulnerable girls.
It's the logic of a predator. But the one that really stands out to me is what the report calls the massage defense.
This one is just bizarre. Explain his logic here.
So Epstein was trying to explain away the constant presence of young women and girls in his house. He claimed that, yes, staff massaged men and women, but never sexually. He tried to frame it as just another household duty. He said these same employees also performed mundane tasks, like answering the phones and serving coffee.
So in his mind, he's trying to create this narrative. She's not a sex trafficking victim. She's a receptionist who just happens to give massages.
It's a transparent attempt to normalize the abuse. He's trying to blend the exploitation into the domestic scenery. Oh, she answers the phone, she pours the tea, she gives a massage.
He's trying to strip the sexual intent out of the act by burying it in a job description.
It is gaslighting on an industrial scale.
And it brings us right back to that word,
Yeah.
atmospherics. If you view these girls as just furniture or just staff, then what you do to them doesn't matter.
Precisely.
But the walls are closing in. We are in 2026. These files are unredacted, and the release has triggered brand new legal threats. We aren't just talking about reputation anymore. We're talking about prison.
We are. The report cites Marcus Johnstone, who's a leading lawyer in this field, and he is warning that Prince Andrew could now face prosecution for very specific crimes: sex trafficking, sexual exploitation, and even prostitution.
And there is one story in these files that I think is the most damning of all. It's the story of Mrs. Windsor.
This is the detail that truly exposes the mechanism of the alleged cover-up. The allegation is that a woman, a potential trafficking victim, was flown into the UK on the Lolita Express.
On Epstein's private jet.
And then smuggled into Buckingham Palace to see Andrew.
Into the palace. I just want listeners to visualize this for a moment. We are talking about the seat of the British monarchy. You have guards in bearskin hats. You have armed police protection officers. You have gates, cameras, centuries of protocol. How do you smuggle a trafficking victim into the Queen's house?
You use the prince's privilege. The files allege that Andrew gave very specific instructions to his aides. He reportedly told them, "Mrs. Windsor will arrive shortly. Please let her in and show her up."
Mrs. Windsor. He used his own family name, the name of the entire royal dynasty, as a code name for a victim.
It's incredibly, unbelievably brazen. It's a power move. It shows a total lack of fear, a sense of complete impunity. But look at the security failure here.
That's what I don't get.
A former police protection officer is quoted in the report, and he says they were not allowed to know the names of these guests.
So the security protocol, which is designed to protect the monarchy from threats, was deliberately blinded.
Yes. The instruction from the prince was effectively, don't ask questions, don't check ID. This person is with me, just let her in.
And this is where the real legal danger lies for Andrew, right? Because this isn't just about having an affair. This is facilitation.
Exactly. Marcus Johnstone, the lawyer, points out that the burden of proof for sex trafficking involves proving that you knowingly facilitated their exploitation.
And this sounds a lot like that.
If Andrew used his royal status, his staff, and his official residence to hide the identity of a victim and facilitate her transport directly into his bedroom, that fits the legal definition of facilitation.
And we know how she allegedly got to the UK.
On the Lolita Express. The flight logs are in the files. Epstein's Boeing 727 landed in the UK around 90 times.
90 times. 90.
90 times. And crucially, the files reveal this continued after Epstein's 2008 conviction for sex offenses.
So everyone knew he was a registered sex offender, but the planes kept landing, and the guests, presumably, kept coming.
It speaks to the level of impunity he felt he had. And now the big question is jurisdiction. Johnstone suggests that if a prosecution happens, it would most likely be brought in the U.S.
Which means extradition.
It's a very real possibility. The U.S. authorities could request his extradition from the U.K.
But Andrew has a defense for that lined up, doesn't he?
His lawyers are already laying the groundwork, yes.
Yeah.
They would likely argue that he cannot receive a fair trial in the United States due to the ongoing media attention.
The classic trial by media defense. Everyone already hates me, so you can't possibly try me fairly.
It's a standard move for high-profile defendants. But usually that defense works best when the evidence is weak or circumstantial. When you have emails from your own inner circle confirming the acts and flight logs and specific security breaches at a palace, the unfair trial argument becomes much, much harder to sell.
Now, I want to move to a section of these files that I feel hasn't gotten enough airtime yet, but it's massive. It's the corruption angle.
This is critical.
Because Andrew wasn't just a prince. For a decade, he was a government official.
This is what people forget. For 10 years, from 2001 to 2011, Prince Andrew was the UK's special representative for international trade and investment. That is an official government role.
He had a taxpayer-funded office.
He had access to highly sensitive economic data. He was representing the UK on the world stage.
And these files suggest he was leaking that data to Giuffre Epstein.
The allegations are incredibly serious. Sir Vince Cable, the former UK business secretary, is now calling for a police investigation into a specific crime, misconduct in public office.
Okay, let's look at the specifics from the report. What exactly did he leak?
First, there's Iceland. During the 2008 financial crisis, the files allege Andrew passed on a confidential Treasury briefing regarding Iceland's collapsing financial system to a banker friend.
Okay, pause. Why does that matter so much?
Information is money, especially in a crisis. If you know a country's entire banking system is about to collapse before the market knows, you can make or save millions, even billions of dollars by shorting their currency or their bonds. That is confidential state information.
You just handed it over.
That is the allegation. And it gets even worse with the Royal Bank of Scotland, or RBS.
RBS. This is the bank the British public bailed out after 2008. The taxpayer owned it.
We owned it. It was a state-owned asset. The files show Andrew forwarded messages about RBS messages that likely contained sensitive internal strategy or data to his advisor, a man named David Stern.
And
Stern then sent them directly to Giuffre Epstein.
So British state secrets regarding a state-owned bank were ending up in the inbox of Giuffre Epstein.
It appears so. And you have to ask the question, why? What was the quid pro quo? Why was the official UK trade envoy feeding financial intelligence to a disgraced American financier?
It sounds like a form of insider trading, or even economic espionage.
It sits squarely in the realm of corruption. Misconduct in public office is a common law offense in the UK. It's serious. It can carry a maximum sentence of life imprisonment.
Wow.
It's used when a public officer willfully neglects their duty or misconducts themselves to such a degree that it amounts to an abuse of the public's trust.
And leaking Treasury briefings to a convicted sex offender feels like it meets that bar.
It certainly seems to. And it wasn't just about banking, it was foreign policy. The files show Andrew allowed Epstein to organize meetings for him during an official trade mission to China in 2010.
So Epstein was acting as some kind of shadow diplomat?
Effectively. You have the official UK government delegation, and then you have Giuffre Epstein pulling strings in the background, setting up meetings. There's even a photo from that trip of Andrew socializing with a Chinese model, suggesting the lines between official government business and Epstein's social operations were completely blurred.
And then there's the Libya connection. This one honestly reads like bad fiction.
It's perhaps the strangest detail in the whole corruption file. The emails show Andrew tried to arrange a meeting between Giuffre Epstein and Colonel Gaddafi.
The dictator of Libya.
At Epstein's request.
But why on earth did Epstein want to meet Gaddafi?
We can only speculate. Libya at the time had massive sovereign wealth funds, all that oil money, huge investment potential. Epstein was always a money man. But the fact that Andrew, a representative of the British Crown and the British government, was acting as a fixer to set up a meeting between a sex offender and a dictator, it's just mind-boggling.
It paints a picture of a man who viewed his public position not as a service to the UK, but as a personal concierge service for his rich, powerful, and very problematic friends.
That is the perfect way to put it. He monetized his access. He used the prestige of the trade envoy role to facilitate Giuffre Epstein's network. And that is why these calls for a criminal corruption investigation are growing so loud. This isn't just about his private life anymore. This is about the integrity of the British government.
So let's bring it all to today, February 18th, 2026. Where is Andrew?
Currently, the reports say he is in hiding at Sandringham.
Sandringham. The King's estate in Norfolk, he's hunkered down.
He is. Police have yet to arrive at the door, but the political and legal pressure is higher than it has ever been.
And what about his brother? What about King Charles? This has to be a complete nightmare for the new reign.
It's a constitutional headache of the highest order. The king, through the palace, has stated he is ready to support the police. He's described as being appalled by the allegations.
Appalled. That's a very strong, very distancing word.
It is. He's not defending him. He's not offering unwavering support, which we've heard in the past. He's appalled. And Jonathan Dimbleby, the broadcaster who is known to be a close friend of Charles, offered a fascinating insight this week.
What did he say?
He said that King Charles would very much like his brother to testify before the U.S. Congress.
Wow. He wants him to testify.
Dimbleby says the king knows it's unlikely to actually happen, but the fact that he wants it to happen says everything you need to know. It signals that the royal protection is gone. The monarchy cannot survive if it is seen to be harboring a fugitive from justice, especially with these kinds of serious corruption allegations attached.
It really feels like that buffer zone has just evaporated, and you have people like Dame Maggie Oliver involved now, too.
Yes, and her voice matters immensely. She's the former detective who exposed the Rochdale grooming scandal. She knows how grooming gangs work. She knows how powerful men protect abusers, and she is insisting that Andrew should not be protected by his royal status.
And the country's top prosecutor has echoed that sentiment.
Yes, stating clearly that the 65-year-old Duke is not above the law. When you have the police, the prosecutors, and implicitly the king all stepping back and saying, let justice take its course, Andrew is very much alone in that room at Sandringham.
So let's just try to summarize this deep dive, because we have covered so much ground.
We certainly have.
We have unredacted emails from 2015 where a journalist and Giuffre Epstein discuss Andrew's consensual sex with a teenager as an established boring fact.
We have the atmospheric strategy, the idea of treating horrific abuse as mere PR noise.
We have the tragic confirmation of Virginia Giuffre's death, which now locks her powerful testimony in amber forever.
We have the Mrs. Windsor security breach at the heart of Buckingham Palace.
And we have this whole new angle of corruption, the trade envoy role being used to leak state secrets to a predator.
It's an avalanche of evidence. It systematically dismantles every single defense Andrew has mounted for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I don't recall the I never met her, the claims of honorable conduct. It's all just shredded by these files.
It really does all come back to that one word for me, atmospherics.
It's the key, isn't it? It unlocks the entire mindset.
Because it implies that for these men, the truth was just something to be managed. It wasn't a moral line. It wasn't about right or wrong. It was just weather.
And they really thought they could control the weather. They thought if they had the right journalists, the right lawyers, the right friends in the palace, they could just make the storm pass them by.
But weather changes.
It certainly does.
So I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to chew on. If a New York Times reporter and Giuffre Epstein were discussing the consensual sex with Virginia Giuffre as a boring established fact way back in 2015, and the institutions of power protected that secret for another decade, what else is currently being dismissed as atmospherics? What other open secrets are floating around in those emails still waiting for the redaction bars to be lifted?
That is the question. And I have a feeling we have not seen the last of these files.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. This was a tough one, but an important one. We'll be watching this story as it develops. Stay curious, stay bold, and we'll see you next time.